Hey, welcome back to the Marianne Hickman Show. I am so excited to put this episode out there into the world because I had the chance to interview Keaton The Muscle Hoskins on my podcast. We just got back from his house a few minutes ago, just recording right there in his office. When I met Keaton, I was actually on a separate podcast, and then I went to the Limitless Arena, and then I got into the Limitless Society, and I have to tell you, what Keaton is building is unique to the world. It is absolutely extraordinary. And the level of love and care that he's putting into every single participant, I see firsthand. I'm so excited for you to be exposed to him. If you've never met him before, I'd be shocked. He's got millions of followers. If you're not part of this universe, I want you to watch this episode and see what he's up to. And here's the thing. I have Maddie, his wife, on the podcast next week. I'm so excited for you to hear from her about a little bit about what it's like behind the scenes, backstage in the Hoskin household, and also on the Limitless Arena stage. This woman is incredible. They're raising these 5 amazing daughters together. Check it out. Well, first of all, thank you for coming on the show. There's so many people in my world that are dying to hear from you.
Good, I like that.
Like you're doing so many good things in the world. And we were just talking, Richard and I, on the way up here. And we're like, when did we first cross paths with Keaton? How long have we known each other? And
I don't remember. When was it?
I think it was when we were on that Financial Genius episode, and you came on as a guest, and I was
with Chris.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, and I was moderating, and you were kind enough to have me on the Limitless Society.
That's right.
And I was like, I wonder if I totally screwed that up because I haven't talked to Keaton since then. I was like, did I mess it up? And then the next time we interfaced, I was the arena that you put on, and when we saw that on Instagram, we were like, holy crap. How did you get so many freaking headliners in that? Like, how did you do that?
I mean, I don't even know the answer to that. I get asked that every time I do an event. Yeah, like, how did you do this? And I'm like, I don't know. I just went 100 miles an hour, and I just kept asking, and I kept, I will say, like, once you get two really good speakers, everybody else wants to be on the stage, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, you got David Goggins, you got Gary Vee, you have, all of these great Ed Milet, Andy Frisella. It's like, well, I have to be on that stage. And truthfully, and I don't say this a lot, I got propositioned probably 10 times from speakers to pay anywhere from $50,000 to $100,000 to be on the stage.
But you didn't say yes to all of them.
I didn't say yes to any of them.
Yeah.
I didn't let anybody pay themselves to be on the stage because to me, that lowers my own value. And listen, I lost money on those events. I would have loved to take in their money. It would have been great to break even by taking 10 people's money. But there was no value to me that if you must pay to be there, you have no value on the stage.
Wow.
And so I said no a lot, and I hurt a lot of people's feelings. People who I think were good friends.
Yeah.
I've got 2 people that literally message me every month like clockwork. Like, hey, when's your next event? I really want to speak at it. And I'm like, ooh, this is going to be a fun conversation when I do it and you're not on there.
You're not there.
Yeah. I'm kind of adamant about holding a space that is so valuable that whatever I bring, everyone must be able to bring, right? Like, I don't want to have really good speakers and then really shitty speakers. Mm-hmm. And in doing that, I have to vet the speakers, and there's a lot of hard conversations to be had because it's like, listen, man, I think you're a wonderful person, but I don't think you bring value to the stage. By the way, I also know the reason you want to be on the stage is because you want to pitch something. Mm-hmm. And for anybody who's come to my events, you realize really quickly there's no pitch here. This is like the first real event where there isn't pitching. Buy my package, buy my program, buy this, buy that. We built you up for 3 days so you could buy this program. Like, there's none of that outside of saying, if you want more of this, you can come to Limitless Society, right?
Right.
I'll always tell people to come to Limitless Society, but there's no pitch. It's not like, hey, we have a package that, because every time I ever saw an event, and I'm not going to name names, but every time I saw an event, I felt like there was cool value for a minute, and then it was a pitch fest.
It was like, here comes.
And I was like, okay, so that's what this was. That's what this whole thing was. This whole thing was to set up people to get into a room, to trick them into buying something. And that's not what I want in my events. I want my events to be valuable in a way that when someone comes, it's a pivoting moment in their life where they have value given, education given, that then they can leave with empowerment and be edified to go do whatever they need to do in their life to accomplish whatever they want to accomplish. And when I put those together, I I get lots of backlash from people who run events. They're like, dude, these events are way too powerful for you not to be pitching and for you not to be doing this and I'm like, I get it, man, but I want to do something different. Maybe I'm going to be the only person in the world that just does events that just brings value to people's lives. And I'm okay with that. And even if it means that I have to lose some money to do it, my purpose is to be impactful and to change people and to help them at some point in our interaction find some information that pivots them in their life towards going towards the best version of themselves, whatever that is. And if that's different than everybody else, then I'm okay with it. I'm not going to do it a different way.
Hey, what's up? Marianne Hickman here. Listen, I'm interrupting my own show because I want to give you something. Now, you guys all want to get on more stages. I've got a free resource for you of stages that are just clamoring for guests. They need guests on a daily, weekly, sometimes monthly basis. This is my podcast database. Now, what I'm going to do is have you go to mariannehickman.com/database. Once you put in your information there, I'm going to send this to you totally for free. Open up this database. You're going to click through it, find the next podcast that's relevant to your topic, hit the application button, show up on their podcast, get in front of their people, and share your content. Remember, mariannehickman.com/database. Let's get you unlocked. Well, and I think a lot of events lose money. People don't talk about this at all.
Yeah.
Most live events are losses.
Yeah.
Right?
And that's why they do the pitches, because the pitch is what actually makes up the income for the loss. So because everybody's looking at it like I'm putting on an event so I can make money. And I help a lot of people do events. A lot of people I mentor, they come to me to say, can you help me do an event? And when they break even, I'm like, dude, you did great. You broke even. You didn't lose any money. Yeah.
Rip off.
Exactly. Because they're thinking it's supposed to add money to their pocket. And if that's why you're doing the event, I get it. But that's not why I do events. I do events to add so much value to so many people in such a short amount of time. I understand that means I need to make an investment into the world. And that's ultimately what it is. I mean, if I bring 10,000 people into an arena and I lose money, but 10,000 people go out and become a greater version of themselves, then I win. That was my purpose, whether I make money or not.
Yeah.
You know, and the last two I haven't. And so it's something that I'm singularly focused on, and I'm not going to change. And I'm going to do bigger and bigger and bigger events till one day I have a stadium of 100,000 people and maybe I lose a few $1 million. But if I could change 100,000 people in one event, imagine what that could impact the world, you know? And that's what I want to do.
And that's a big deal. And I think about this, and I'm going to go a little spiritual, and I know you won't mind because you bring God into everything, right? So when Jesus was in his ministry, that was a purely do good in the world and save mankind.
Absolutely.
But it needed to be funded.
Yes.
And it was funded. So if you're putting on events, and those of us that have been putting on events for a long time, we know it's usually a loss. How do you integrate that into a business model?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so ultimately, this is what I think. I know this is going to feel really different than what most people would say. So again, this for the people who listen, they're going to be like, oh, that's definitely different. I genuinely believe that if you become a light in people's lives of value, you will make money. You will be successful. I don't always know that there's a tag to. Like, I don't always know that if I do Limitless Society and 8,000 people show up and I change 8,000 people's lives, am I going to make money in that moment? Probably not. But I'll tell you what I am going to do. I'm going to be the fastest growing coach in the world because I get to give what I want to give, which is value to people. And in some way or another, I'm going to make money from it. I just am. I know I am. And it's not going to be that event. And it's not going to be this again, singular focus of I got to make money on events. What if I just need to give back to the world value? And at some point, that value I give will in turn make me money. And it may not be the event. It may not be them joining Limitless. It may not be them mentoring with me, but at some point it will bring value back to me. And I genuinely believe that. And I know that's not the best business model to stand on, right?
But it's the required energy behind it, though.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I think is different is when you get into this space, this isn't a business model that is a normal business model. I'm in the space of changing people's lives. Now, do I make money? Absolutely, I do. But my purpose is to change people's lives. My reason is to change people's lives. And in any other business, when I'm selling a product or a service, I'm not necessarily trying to change their life. I'm trying to make some money on the product or service. So it is a different business model. And I think it takes living a higher law of understanding that when you universally put into the world value, you do get value back. And again, I don't know what that is sometimes. I don't always know, but I do know that the more value I bring to this world and to people, the more I will get back value, whatever that is. And sometimes value isn't money. Sometimes it's something greater than that. And I'm okay with that thought. And again, to put that in a business plan doesn't make a lot of sense.
No, I mean, no bank would lend you money based on that business model.
Yeah, they're like, oh, well, that's great.
Good
so
for you.
How do you pay for us with value? I don't know, man. So I get it, but this is something that's very, very different. And I genuinely in my heart want to be different. Again, I'm not going to say names, but there's a lot of bullshit in this industry of what I do. There's a lot of bullshit coaches. There's a lot of bullshit gurus. There's a lot of people who are just here that just want to make money. And I don't blame them. Just like the guy who wants to wash my windows wants to make money. He's not washing my windows to be nice. I get it. But I genuinely want to be something different. I want to be something that, because this is my passion and my love, and my way to change the world, and of course I can make money from it, but I'm singularly focused on the first piece of that, which is bringing the value to people. I think it's going to pay off one day, and I don't know when, and I don't know how, and I don't know directly where it will come from. I just believe it, because I do believe what you put out, you get back, whatever that is.
Well, and you're a living example of that.
Yeah.
I think if anyone can detect energy through a camera screen, that's palpable. I can feel that from you as a human. And you're right. If people get familiar enough with other mentors in the industry or whatever, you do enough of that, you're going to get a gut check. Absolutely. And you're going to know.
Absolutely. And right now, there's a lot of people who are getting gut checked in the coaching industry that we're trying dollar for dollar rather than value for value. Mm-hmm. And we're seeing them fall by the wayside. And it's sad for me. I don't wish that on anyone, no matter how bad of a coach I think they are. I want everybody to win. I don't care who you are. I just wish that you would see that the reason you're not winning is because you're only doing this for money and you're not doing it for the purpose that it should be. This is a higher calling, as prideful maybe as that sounds. This is a higher calling than I started a business coaching people. No, man, I got enough businesses. I built enough businesses.
I saw that in your story today.
Yeah, I want to bring value because it gives me purpose. And it makes me feel important to be able to add value to people's lives that they take, and it changes in them something that never would have changed if it wasn't for the value that I added. I love seeing a father become a better father, a husband become a better husband, a mother become a better mother, a business owner become a better business owner. Whatever it is, I love to see somebody become a greater version of themselves. That's what I'm after. And I also think that's why the group grows so fast and why there's so much power in these events and so much power in even my one-on-one mentoring that I do with people is I am singularly focused on it. And sometimes I think it hurts my bottom dollar. But in the long run, I do believe that in 10, 15 years from now, when Tony Robbins is gone and Ed Milet is gone, that I will stand on that pillar and be the person that I've added value to the world for 20 years. Yes, I've made good money in businesses. I've made good money in coaching, but I stand above them all because through the whole entire process and journey, I just wanted to add value that changed you.
No, when you and I were talking a little while ago, I was like, what is your biggest want for the Limitless Society? And you said 10,000 members. Why? Why 10,000? What's the milestone marker for you?
I always think about massive action. And massive action in any industry is probably a different number, right? Like if I'm a realtor, what's massive action?
Right.
If I'm a massage therapist, what's massive action? If I'm a personal trainer, what's massive action? For me, massive action is 10,000 people. It's not, I think we have 2,500 in the group. It's not 2,500. It's not 5,000. It's 10,000 people all over the world, by the way, not just in Utah, not just in the United States, all over the world. If I could get to that number as quickly as possible, I can exponentially grow that number as quickly as I really want to grow it. Like 10,000 is my beginning number of massive action.
I thought so. I thought it was the first milestone for you when I heard you say that. Yeah, it's like my first.
You know, I see Tony Robbins changing lives, and he has these events. There's 5,000, 10,000 people
15,000 was when I was at.
15,000, like it's crazy. He could fill a stadium. And again, like hearing those numbers, that's kind of that milestone for me. Is it's like, okay, dude, you're about 2 years in. You have 25. We've actually had like 6,000 people sign up for Limitless Society.
No kidding.
We just have a lot of fall off because people come in, they don't do what they're supposed to do, or it becomes a burden to them financially, and then they fall out. We've had like 6,000 members sign up.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Wow.
We have quite a bit of retention problem because, again, you're asking people to invest in something that isn't as tangible as everything else. I love Pace Morby. His product is tangible.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you this many days to make this much money, to do a sub-2, to buy a house, to flip a house. It's very tangible. A greater version of yourself is not tangible. Like, it's not. And how long does it take? There's no timeline to it. Mm-hmm. You spend the majority of your life going after that person. So again, it makes it a little bit harder because I tell anybody that does anything, if you don't have a hard offer, it's going to be harder for you to build anything, right? Mm-hmm. And it's one of the reasons why I did start moving in Limitless Society. We have the Entrepreneur Blueprint Program. Mm-hmm. That's a hard offer.
Yeah.
You have 1 year. It's $6,000. I will show you how to buy or build a business that will cash flow you more than you do now in your current job. I will help you become an entrepreneur. That has been phenomenal. I think we have 500 people in that group now.
Sick.
Awesome. But it's a hard offer, so it's easy to build. Limitless Society is something so different. There isn't a tangible thing. But I will say, and I don't look up to a lot of people, Tony Robbins is one of those people I look up to, and he doesn't have a hard offer. Like he does in his programs, but
sure,
Tony
but
Robbins is
upfront.
Personal development. Mm-hmm. That's what it is. It's change your mind and change everything you do. But look at what he's been able to do. Look at what he's been able to change. I would say he's probably one of the most influential people in the world without a hard offer. And I look at that and I say, why can't I be there? Why can't I do that? I know when he was 36, he wasn't even near as successful as I've been in coaching.
I've watched his old videos. Have you seen them?
Oh, yeah, it's crazy.
Oh
and it's phenomenal. I love it. I had lunch with him one day and we were talking about it. And he showed me his first meeting and there was 6 people in a room. And he was like, dude, I was like, I think I picked the wrong career path. And then within 10 years, he's got thousands and thousands of people. And then in 20 years, he's got tens of thousands of people. And I look at that and I look at it as the same for me. I think I can do it faster. But I know that that's the route that I want to follow. And it's that there isn't a hard offer, man. I just want you to become a better version of yourself. When people come in and we do calls, like even my last call was becoming a bigger monster than the monsters that ultimately come at you.
Such a good call. Oh my gosh.
There's no tangible piece there that makes you richer or makes you better, or it's all simple principles, mindsets, and habits that make you a better version of yourself. And again, that's not a hard offer. And it's not as tangible as people want when they're spending money, but you do have to understand, and this is what I'll spend the rest of my life trying to portray, is you should invest in yourself, no matter what that is, and without an expectation. You should invest in your growth without an expectation. Like, okay, I'm going to spend $10,000, but what am I going to get out of it? Well, you're going to get a greater version of you. Well, yeah, but what's the metric? I don't know, man. I don't know where you're at, and I don't know where you're going to be. I just know that the investment is going to make you better. There's no one that could have been on that call last week that didn't gain something to make them a better person, right? Mm-hmm. But how far did it make them better? Who did it make better? What changes did they take? And there's not a lot of tangible pieces. So it does make it harder.
Well, I was not talking to Alex. One day I'll have an interview with Alex Hormozi, but he said something on someone else's podcast that says there are hard skills and there are soft skills. So we have these soft skills of becoming a better person, these immeasurable things, right? But he also says soft skills can be boiled down to hard skills. And I think there's actually something to be said about measuring becoming a better person. Yeah. For my example was this. I asked my daughter, after I made my first investment in myself, right, personal development, I asked her, is this working?
Yeah.
am I a better mom? It's what I asked her.
Yeah.
And she said, you don't yell at me as much. You're not an angry mom anymore. And that, as much of a punch to the gut as it was with this truth factor, was like, I would pay all day for that measurable.
But that was a metric, right?
It was a hard metric and a soft thing.
It wasn't even a metric that you ever even thought about when you decided to go down this path.
Nope.
Like I have those same beautiful conversations with my children, with my wife. Like she'll randomly say to me, you're just getting better. And she doesn't even have anything tangible to say to it. You're just getting better. How you communicate with the children, how you communicate with me, how we have time together, how you're present, how you're doing this, how quickly you are to anger, how slowly you are to sadness. Whatever it is, you're doing better. It's different. You're becoming a greater version of yourself. And for me, I'm like, okay, that's what I'm seeking, but it's really hard when I'm like, okay, so to become a better person, I'm going to yell less at my children, right? You don't think about that metric, but those are also the metrics, those ones that are so hard to like grasp, that change everything.
They are.
Everything.
Yeah, and I even tell people to measure it. I'm like, write tally mark how many times you yelled today.
Yeah.
And then watch it, because I'm going to get really nerdy here for a second. Have you seen this experiment where they measure the photons on the splatter pattern on the sheet of paper? This is crazy. So they shined a light and then they put 2 slits in a paper and put photo paper on the other side.
Yeah.
Right? So they turned on the experiment, let it run, and a pattern appeared. And then they left the room, the observation room, turned on the experiment again, and the splatter pattern was different. The photons literally behaved differently by being observed. It was like, I get goosebumps thinking about all this, because as physical things exist, spiritual things exist, right? So if in my mind, if we monitor our own behavior, if we are journaling, if we are doing these hard skills, we're going to see a different splatter pattern. Yeah. We're going to see how the light literally emanates from us differently. Yeah. If we track it.
Well, and one of my favorite sayings is, where there is no metric, there is no progression.
Yeah.
And you do need to find those metrics. If you come into personal development knowing, I don't know what I'm going to get better at, but there are some things that I have to get rid of. And maybe my metric is just how quickly do I get rid of that, right? Like, again, yelling at my children, or how many arguments do I get in with my wife? How many times do I yell at the guy that I'm driving next to because I have rage on the road, right? But there has to be metrics, because without the metrics, there is no progression. It's like the fat guy that comes to you and says, I want to get in good shape. And you go, okay, well, what do you weigh? I don't know. What do you want to weigh? I don't know. Well, okay, so where are we going?
Why are we here?
There's no progression, because there's no metric to be calculated to say, okay, I'm here and I want to be here, and it's going to take this long and it's going to take this to get there. But most people don't do those metrics. But again, in personal development, it's really hard, because most of those metrics are so far beyond fathom of what you would even think, that when it happens, you're like, oh shit, I'm not yelling at my kids as much anymore. That's a great metric for me to get better at.
Well, and I think it's also hard because it's not a very marketable thing.
Yeah.
If I'm going to do the poorest job of marketing, it's like, hey, you suck, pay me to help you get better. Like, nobody wants that.
Yes.
Right?
And that's what makes it so hard for me, is I'm trying to find a tangible way to do that, and it's almost impossible. Like, I'm going to go to somebody who just is poor, broke, and just a shitty human being, and I'm going to say, if you pay and invest in yourself, you will become better. And when you become better, you aren't broke, you're not sucky. But then they're like, well, yeah, but there's no real tangible, there's no metric for me to hold. It makes it really hard to market. It's one of the reasons we don't really market Limitless Society. We market the Blueprint program because there's tangible pieces there. But it's me getting on and going, hey, you should dump all of your money into becoming a better version of yourself. And people are like, okay, well, what does that even mean? And what's a better version, And that's when it becomes really hard. But that's all I have. That's all I'm able to do. Even for Tony Robbins, I remember when we had lunch and we were talking about how he grew. He's like, dude, do you know how hard it is to tell somebody that they should put money into themselves without telling them what that is going to return? It's really hard.
Yeah.
And he and Jim Rohn were the godfathers of those things. And now, obviously, personal development's a huge thing. And I'm seeing the success from it because of Tony Robbins' work 30 years ago.
Thank you, Tony.
Yeah. But in reality, we're still in that phase of like, man, there's nothing tangible. I can't tell you that when you become a greater version of yourself, that your children love you more. I can't tell you that your marriage will get better and in what area it will get better. I can just say that the better version of you serves you better. That's all I can say. And you should dump as much time and energy and investment into that, because when you become that, you will look back and understand why you were where you were and why you are now where you're at. Which is, it's hard. It's like standing outside of a building thinking I want to be inside. I have no idea what's inside. And then you're telling me it costs money to get inside. I'm like, well, I don't even know if I want to be there. I don't even know what that is. And then you get in there and you're like, holy shit, I'm so glad I did this. This is the best thing in the whole world.
Sounds like church.
Yeah. But ultimately, like, that's kind of what it is. It's like, all right, I got a blindfold on and you tell me to take the blindfold off and start paying, and I don't know where I'm going.
Yeah.
It makes it really hard.
But it's the best thing ever.
Absolutely.
I think by the time, there will be a day when we have a part 2, and you're going to tell me I figured it out.
Yeah, I hope.
You like figure out how to market to the people who need you the most. And the industry is turning I believe, into something that where people are more willing to do that now than ever. I don't know. Maybe Tony just led the way and did it, but I think it's ever evolving. We were talking back a few weeks ago. It's been a while, but I remember being at the first Limitless Arena, seeing the incredible lineup, and then I was like, I couldn't help it. I was counting the number of men versus women on stage, and right out the gate, I want to say I'm sexist. Everyone on that stage earned that spot.
Yeah.
Freaking deserved to be there. Same thing with the second one. I was like, this ratio is not 50-50. It's skewed in one direction. And you and I both know that there are so many powerful women out there.
Absolutely.
That I don't know why they're not on stage.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is? Because you said it's part of your mission to do that.
Yeah. So I have 5 daughters, and
Yeah.
it only serves me as a father to find powerful women to put in front of my children, right? And I'm adamant about doing that. But I will say, in the world, statistically, that men do spend money on personal development way more than women do.
Really?
Yeah, in everything. I mean, even if we take Limitless Society, there's 20-30% of them are women and the rest are men.
I had no idea.
Yeah,
Really?
that's about the number. I mean, even when you go on the calls,
You're
there's
right.
10 or 15 women and then the rest are men.
I noticed the same thing this morning. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, and so because of that, that means the demographic of powerful women is smaller. It is. And then you get into this place of like, okay, who is actually powerful and who positioned themselves in that way, which I'm finding out, even when I bring people on and I'm like, well, they should be really good. And then they show up and I'm like, oh, that's not somebody that should have been on stage, which I'm finding a lot more with women.
No kidding.
It's like, gosh, damn it. Why did I put that person on stage? That I thought they were going to be a really powerful speaker, but they're not. And I don't know how they got to where they're at, but they shouldn't be there. And I mean, I have that same conversation with men too, but it seems to be more abundant with women. And again, for me, every time I put on an event, the first thing I'm thinking about is like, okay, who's a powerful woman that I can get that, one, will put butts in seats, but 2, will actually add value to those people who are listening. And it is harder. It's not easy to find powerful women. The demographic is way, way, way smaller. And I don't know if it's because statistically men put more money into personal development and growth and progression. I don't know what that is. I just know that for me, in the personal development space, in the arena space, it's very, very heavy one-sided men.
I wonder if, and this thought crossed my mind as we were driving home, I don't think that's a lack of powerful women existing. I just wonder if they're all being powerful at home.
Yeah, and that may be true. I mean, listen, we both know that the most important thing in the whole world is your home, and the work that you do with inside your home. My wife could go get a great job making $150,000 a year. She could go crush whatever she wanted to do. She was doing it before we got married. She was the breadwinner in her home. But I'll be very honest with you, that's not where I want her. I want her here in my home. Like, this is the most important work you'll ever do. I want her here. I want her here with my children. They say statistically that mothers is how does it? I just read it. The mental health of children is almost 100% dependent on the mother.
Dude, we feel that too. When we have an off day, ain't nobody having an on day.
Yeah. But because of that, it's so crucial. Like, okay, well, do I want to build my business or do I want my home to be built? Well, I want my home to be built. There are very distinct roles in marriages, right? And both of them are very, very crucial and powerful. But let's be honest, the role of a mother is the most powerful role that you could possibly have on this planet. I know lots of women who have no kids, who have never been married, who are doing really well in money. That's awesome. To me, they're missing huge power points of like, can you imagine if you had 5 kids and you put all of this power into them, how those 5 would then go change the world? And ultimately that's what I'm trying to do with my 5 daughters and why it's so crucial for me to have my wife here. But again, I'm back to that, like, okay, how do I find a powerful woman on stage who's powerful in all aspects of her life, as a mother, as a wife, as a business owner, in any success? And that demographic is smaller.
It's hard.
It's way hard.
I mean, mastering home is, there are so few people that develop mastery level just as a parent, right? And then to add on all those things, it's a tighter demographic for sure. But that's why it is so critical, because every mom that feels alone in motherhood should have a woman on stage to look to and say,
agree.
there is a way to do it.
100%.
There's an and, not an or with everything that you want to do.
I mean, really, if we really nailed it down, like the people who should be spending the most investment into growing are mothers, because they're the ones that are teaching and cultivating the environment and doing all the most powerful stuff in the home, right? We know that the majority of people are dealing with childhood trauma, and the majority of people are literally getting by day to day because of their childhood trauma. If we would have had better mothers in the homes, a lot of those traumas would never existed, and we would have a greater world today. I know that there's a very important role as a father. We know that, especially
100%.
when you look at a lot of things. But again, statistically, it's the mental health of the mother is what directly affects the children.
Yeah.
And understanding that, then you should put as much as you can into becoming that mother for those children to build powerhouse children. How do I want to change the world? Well, I can change it by my children, because I can put into them to go into the future and build everything that ultimately they have in their environment.
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, I was texting my friends this morning because I knew I was talking with you today. I'm going to read I don't break the rule of putting my phone on stage very often, but I'm going to do it right now because I have a group on my phone called Squad Goals, and it's all my couples friends that are in here. And this is what I said to them. I said, I'm interviewing the muscle today on my podcast. What do you guys want me to ask? And it came back with some really funny ones from the bros in the group, which I will ask you in a minute. But I wanted to ask this one specifically for Trish because it's right in line with what we're talking about. She said, if he could have his kids learn, accept, and excel in one lesson from their childhood, what would you want it to be?
Communication. I want my children to learn the power of communication. We know in this world that a really powerful skill is sales. You're selling everything. Mm-hmm. You're selling yourself. You're selling your vision. You're selling your company. You're selling a product. I mean, your sales is really important. But preface to sales is your ability to portray whatever's in your mind onto, the minds of whoever you're talking to. And I want my children to be very, very well-to-do in their ability to adequately portray whatever is here to the minds of those that they're speaking with, because a well-spoken person can always accomplish whatever goal they have in their mind. And so for me, I look at all inadequacies of all the people that I get to coach, and it always comes down to, man, you suck at communicating. You think about where there really are powerful people in this world, none of them lack the ability to communicate. None of them. If they're really powerful people, I'm not saying famous people, I'm not saying great sports people, I'm saying powerful human beings, they do not lack the ability to adequately communicate. And so for me, there's a million lessons that I want to teach my children, but I want my children to be able to always be very well-to-do in their skill of communication, which is two pieces. Everybody hears communication and they think my ability to talk. Communication is listening. And communication ultimately is a 1-2 punch of, can I speak into somebody questions that pull things out of them that I can hear, that then we can create an edifying conversation, whatever that is. If I wish to have influence, I would be able to communicate adequately to you, pull from you your feelings, your emotions, what you're thinking, and then listen to them, hear them, and then give you value and deliver something of value that would ultimately help us either connect, do business, sell, influence, whatever that is. So for me, the list of what I want to send my children into the world with is huge, but at the top of that is communication.
Grant Cardone said the exact same thing.
Did he?
Yeah, absolutely the exact same thing. He said, my homeschool teacher was saying, man, scared about the math grades, and he's like, screw the math.
Yeah, I don't care about that.
If they can communicate, that's what I want.
Yeah.
And when you say that, like all of these Rolodex of people come through my mind. Abraham Lincoln, we know him because of the way he communicated. Yeah. Martin Luther King Jr., we know him. It doesn't matter, in my opinion, what business you're building. Yeah. It doesn't matter what your vision is. If you can't communicate about it, it won't grow. But on the flip side, if you can, that is a skill that it doesn't matter what century it is.
It doesn't matter.
That's the core of everything. In fact, I think about the scripture in the Book of Mormon, when he wanted to destroy civilization, he made them unable to communicate, which tells us a lot about the value of communication.
Yeah. Ultimately, the value of communication, too. Yeah. Like, I work with a lot of people who have a hard time with conflict. And I always tell them a conflict delayed is a conflict multiplied. The reason that we have wars today is because we have ceased in our communications and we have ceased to understand one another. And in anything, whenever an issue arises, it's always handled with good, direct communication. Always. I have conflict every single day. In fact, I literally was almost to get myself in a lawsuit yesterday with somebody who's been doing some scammy stuff in a business. And I said, you know what, man, let's put all this aside and let's get on the phone.
Yeah.
So we got on the phone, and I could tell he was very inadequate in his ability to communicate. I, however, am not. We had a very good conversation. At the end of the conversation, both sides were rewarded and both sides became benefited, and we continued to do what we need to do while correcting the problem that was at hand. Now, if I didn't communicate with him, if I continued through crazy text messages like he was doing, today I'd be on the phone with a lawyer getting into a lawsuit with him, whereas all it took was good communication to be able to work through that. And that's ultimately a superpower. That's why I focus on it with my children. And that superpower is I can literally deal with anything through really good communication. Anything. No problem can arise that I can't handle if I'm able to have communication with whatever or whoever that conflict or that problem arises. And it's the same thing, like we wouldn't have wars today if the people in war would sit down and communicate in a way that both of them could be benefited and edified and understand each other. We would get rid of all of those issues.
I've heard somewhere once said very well that if a war ends because men sit down in a boardroom and sign a piece of paper, why can't we prevent the same war by just starting there?
Exactly. And if we did, we wouldn't have the wars.
Yeah.
If we started there, we wouldn't have the wars. One of the reasons, and I don't mean for this to be a political thing because I'm not really into politics, but one of the reasons I do like Trump is because he will sit down and he will have hard conversations with people ultimately that are looking to come at him, come at the United States, whatever it is, and he'll have real conversations with real solutions to take care of what needs to be taken care of. The greatest leaders in the world are those who can communicate, right?
Yeah.
So again, I mean, I have a million attributes I want my daughters to embody. One of those is leadership. Well, you can't be a good leader if you don't communicate. So for me, I want them to be so good at communication that everything that comes their way, they're able to handle it.
How important do you think it is? So with this communication tie-in, I want to go back to events kind of in a business model because all of that's communication, right?
All of it.
And we're using live events to communicate en masse in live person to multiple people at once. If events generally in and of themselves often are a loss leader and often don't make money, but you're empowering yourself and your business with that form of communication, why would anyone do events? Why would anyone learn to public speak if the events themselves don't make money?
I mean, ultimately, because of the answer of what we just talked about, like put those completely aside, everything in anything that you seek in success would be through your ability to communicate. So that's, again, I know it sounds really simple, but like that's where everybody should start. Everybody even listening to this, they should check themselves and go, how well do I communicate?
That's the thing, because a lot of my students are speakers, right? They all want to learn public speaking.
Yeah.
And I wanted to see your opinion on what makes a fantastic public speaker and what makes a terrible public speaker. When you see someone get up on stage, how can you tell the difference?
A few things. A great speaker is someone who's good at communicating. A great speaker is somebody who can tell a story and in the story tie a message into what they learned from the story and then have a tie down to that story of the message, right? I know a lot of good storytellers, but they're not good speakers.
Thank you.
Because there's so many people who can just get up and tell this story, and you're like, okay, cool, man, that's a great story, but why did you say that story, right?
I'm not better off because of it.
Yeah, I didn't learn anything. You know, all of life is growing and learning through experience. But what's so beautiful about life is that we can grow and learn from other people's experiences if they are able to adequately portray how they learned that in the story in which they learned it. So one of the reasons Ed Milet is such a powerful speaker is, and we've all heard his speech because he speaks pretty much the same everywhere he goes. It's this beautiful story of his father and his son, and that he learned to become the one in his family. And he also talks about one more, the message from his father and what he learned in that story. So if you break it down, you realize he's really good at telling a story, and he's really good at portraying what he learned in that story so that we learn what was in that story. I didn't have to go through what he went through because he can tell me that and teach me that, and I can learn what he learned, and I don't have to have that experience. Most people make speaking so hard that there's so many bullet points and there's so many things that you must do. And I would say the greatest speakers understand one really simple principle. In all the speaking that I do, I notice that the majority of speakers, and I'm not coming at speakers, there's not a lot of really good speakers. I've noticed that the difference between a good speaker and a mediocre speaker is one simple phrase, and it's, are you here to impress your message or express your message, right? And as soon as you switch that little switch of, I don't care if people like me, I want to portray something that's on my heart that taught me so that it can teach them. And I am simply a conduit to a message to express to them, rather than I'm here on stage to impress you guys with how well I speak and how much money I make and how successful I am. But the problem is when you go to these events, that's what you see. You see so many people get onto that stage and go, all right, I'm here to impress people. And you're not. You're here to express a message, and you're just the conduit to that message. And if you can understand that principle, all of us have wonderful experiences in our life that we learn from. All of us have stories. But if I can portray that story that touches people and then teach them what I learned, then they can learn it. And that's when you see real power and movement in people. Is I'm literally walking you down the journey of what I went through, and I'm so well at it that you join me in it, and then you learn what I learned in that journey in the 10-minute speech that I just gave you that took me 10 years to learn. And that's when you really see a really powerful, great speaker. And for me, that's what I dictate. And I'm really hard. I'm really critical on speakers.
I think you
watch
should be.
Everybody speak because I'm studious with that. And I always leave there going, that was a great story, or that was a powerful message. And there's a very, very big difference. And when we learn, especially people who are trying to learn to speak, it's like, okay, I got to have a really good story. What's the message? What is it that you learned? And is that what you're trying to portray? Is that what you're trying to express? Or are you just on the stage trying to tell a cool story?
Well, a lot of people think your mess becomes your message, and there's a lot of truth to that.
Yeah.
But I think if you're not healed from the wound in the story, then you shouldn't be. That's not your story.
No. If you didn't learn anything from it, then why the hell are you talking about it?
Oh, I've seen people do that when they're on stage, and I'm just funny. Like, I pity you, but I'm not inspired.
Yeah, we all know that grandpa that's great at telling a story, but there's no message to the story. And it's like, cool, thanks for the story, Grandpa. That was a lot. I don't know why you told me that story. And then you meet somebody who can tell a story and captivate you in the story and then portray the message of what they learned. And then you learn it and you're like, oh, okay, that was powerful.
Yeah.
That's very different.
Yeah. Oh, I want to do a part 2 so bad on just storytelling, man. Thank you so much for being on the show today. Thank you for what you're doing in the world, and thank you for the way that you're blessing lives in a ripple effect that I don't think you'll ever meet everyone who you've blessed, but you're doing it.
Well, thank you.
It means the world. Okay. This is Keaton Hoskins on the Marianne Hickman Show. Thank you for joining us today, and we'll see you in the next episode. Hey, what's up? Marianne Hickman here. Hey, listen, I hope you enjoyed that episode. We have some pretty amazing speakers on my podcast, and of course, more to come. If this is something that you enjoyed, guys, smash the like button, smash the subscribe button. You guys know what to do. I love your comments, and I respond to every single one of them personally, not a bot or an agency. So if this is something you're enjoying, tell me about it. Tell me your gold nuggets. I want to hear from you. But here's the most important thing I want you to laser in on. I told you about the podcast database. You've probably seen me post about it all over social media. I want to make sure that you get it. So here's what I want you to do. Go to mariannehickman.com podcast.com/database. Once you put all of your information in there, I'm going to send you the document. You request access to it. Boom, it's unlocked. Once you're in there, my rule of thumb is to apply to 10 podcasts a month. It's very digestible. It's very easy to do. And the database gets updated twice a week. So I want you constantly checking back in there for the next podcast that fits your audience. Thank you for being here. Much love to you, and we'll see you in the next episode.